Hello, I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society, and welcome to another episode of Monuments Monday. And of course, we're continuing our episodes on the monuments, markers, and tablets in the borough of Gettysburg. And today, by my count, we're at number 21, the monument to the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment. The monument was dedicated on September 1st, 1892, and we'll show here a photograph taken at the dedication ceremony of the monument. And a little bit about the monument from our local newspaper, the Gettysburg Compiler from August 30th, 1892. The monument, which stands at the end of Chambersburg Street at the intersection of the Chambersburg Road and Springs Avenue, is striking, differing from all the others in the makeup of the bronze statue, which surmounts a huge boulder, brought there from Little Round Top. The statue, which is 6 feet high, represents a young man in his shirt sleeves with his pants in his boots, having U.S. cap and accoutrements, and holding a musket in his hands in the attitude of looking for the enemy. 2 bronze plaques will give historical data. Its dedication will have more than usual local interest from the fact that one of the companies of the regiment was recruited here. And that's kind of interesting. And I'll try here to give a brief overview of the actions of the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment. Although we're going to put a link here in the description that you can read from Pennsylvania at Gettysburg with a speech that was given that describes their actions prior to the battle. So, in June of 1863, when Governor Curtin issued a proclamation calling for Pennsylvania citizens to join together, come to Harrisburg, and enlist in units to help stop the invasion, men and boys from Gettysburg got the notice by telegraph. On June 16th, about 60 boys from Gettysburg College on Chambersburg Street got together and decided to form a unit. It was nicknamed the College Guards. They went to the college, they spoke with the president of the college, Henry Louis Barker, who suggested that they not join the Army and return to their studies. They were hoping that one of the professors at the college would volunteer as the captain of the company. But it turned out that one of the students of the Lutheran Theological Seminary, who had graduated from the college in 1862, had been in one of the 90-day units at the beginning of the war, Frederick Kleinfelter, and he was appointed as the captain of the company. They traveled to Harrisburg, where they joined forces with other companies from other counties. As it turned out, there were about 735 men put together in a unit referred to as the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment. The colonel of the regiment was William Wesley Jennings, who had been the colonel in the 127th Pennsylvania that had been discharged from service, so he was a combat veteran. Company A, as we mentioned, would be commanded by Captain Frederick Kleinfelter, who's from York County originally. And actually, Company I of this unit was from Hanover, and it included many soldiers from eastern Adams County in the New Oxford area. As a matter of fact, one of the lieutenants in Company I was John Quincy Adams Peffer. And we actually mentioned his brother in a video last week. his brother was actually killed in the fighting at Cold Harbor as a member of the 87th Pennsylvania Volunteers. Now, according to the muster rolls, Company A had 3 officers and 87 men. According to Henry Richards, that was part of the company, there were 57 college students, or about 60. There were 4 seminary students, which included Frederick Kleinfelter, and 22 other people. Some of them were Gettysburg citizens, and some of them were men who were added to the unit in Harrisburg. This regiment, they were given uniforms, they were armed, and then they were sent back to Gettysburg. Prior to the battle, Gettysburg was an outpost from which scouts were being sent out towards the South Mountain Range to monitor the southern invasion in the Cumberland Valley. And it was hoped that these 700 men could be brought back here, sent out the Chambersburg Pike, placed in the mountain range as sort of a blocking force in case the Southerners decided to come over the mountains. They left Harrisburg by train on June 24th. And about 6 miles from Gettysburg, there was a bridge over a gully in which Swift Run passed under the railroad. The 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment was on 2 trains, and it was a special, meaning it wasn't a scheduled train. So there was a lady, and she was herding a cow from one field across the top of the railroad bridge to another field. And when she was in the middle of the bridge, the train came around the corner. And she ran as fast as she could. At the last moment, she dove off of the tracks into the field, but the cow remained on the tracks. And the train hit the cow, it derailed, there was a horrible accident. Some of the men were injured, no one was killed, except the cow. That night, the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment spent the night 6 miles from Gettysburg, and they ate very well that night, a steak dinner. The next day, men from that unit came to Gettysburg, and the bulk of them came into Gettysburg on the morning of June 26th. It was a Friday, it was raining. The commander of the troops positioned in Gettysburg at that time, sent here by Darius Couch, was a guy named Granville O. Howler. And he sent the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment out towards the mountain range. Again, they were going to be acting as a blocking force. Well, when they went out this road, they got about 4 miles. They stopped at Marsh Creek, and they began to get word that Southern troops were approaching their position. Unbeknownst to anyone in Gettysburg, on June 26, Jubal Early's division crossed over the mountain range and started their advance across Adams County towards the Susquehanna River. And when word came that thousands of Southerners were marching towards them, Colonel Jennings decided that he better get his untested, untrained men out of that situation. So he started to pull his men back, and they marched north of Gettysburg. He was going to try to swing around and get back to the railroad somehow, east of Gettysburg. He left about 40 men behind at Marsh Creek, and they met the advance of the Southern Army coming on. They were quickly overwhelmed and entirely captured. In the meantime, Jubal Early sent other units after the 26th, and they caught up to them north of town along what is now the Goldenville Road at the Whitmer Farm. And after some brief skirmishing, the 26th retreated in the direction of Harrisburg. No one was killed in the battle, of the Whitmer Farm, or sometimes we call it Bailey's Hill. But about 250 more of the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment were captured. The rest of them marched back to Harrisburg. According to Henry Richards, the men marched 45 out of the next 52 consecutive hours. They went 2 days without food and were substantially without sleep or rest for 3 days and 2 nights. In later years, the members of the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment struggled to find their place in the historiography of the battle. Many who were involved looked back upon the whole episode as a huge fiasco. Quote, picturesque and interesting, perhaps, but without substantial consequence. Jubal Early's force captured the town of Gettysburg and then, of course, marched across Adams in York County the next day. The Wrightsville Bridge was burned. The Southern Army advanced on the defenses of Harrisburg, but eventually word came that Lee wanted to concentrate his troops at Gettysburg, and they turned around and came back. At the dedication ceremony, there were several speeches. And one of them was made by Samuel Pennypacker, who was in the regiment, was a judge at the time, and later, in 1903, became governor of Pennsylvania. And he was one that continuously made exaggerated claims over the importance of the action that this unit was involved in. According to one of his accounts, it certainly delayed their movements considerably, as you will see by consulting Jubal Early's official report. The delay was sufficient to save Harrisburg. The evidence, I believe, is conclusive that we burned the first powder and drew the first blood at Gettysburg. I don't know if anybody bled because of this fight. According to Henry Richards of Company A, the Gettysburg College Guards, the men of the 26th were the first troops to oppose the entrance of the rebels into Pennsylvania, the first troops to meet the enemy at Gettysburg, and the first to draw blood in that historic combat. He further claimed that they had martially delayed the advance of Lee's army and saved Harrisburg from capture. He concluded, with the knowledge of events we now possess, who can deny that these occurrences were not instrumental in the salvation of the entire nation? I'll tell you who's going to disagree with that. I am going to disagree with that. If anything, Jubal Early's men chasing the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment sped up their advance towards Harrisburg, not slowed it down. And, you know, I understand why untrained, untested troops will not stand against battle-hardened veterans of the Army of Northern Virginia, and I sympathize with the plight that these young men found them in. But let's not exaggerate their role in the Gettysburg campaign. Now, they dedicated the monument here in 1892, and some of the things I talked about come from that dedication ceremony, and again, we'll have it in the description below. There are other markers that you can visit associated with the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment's actions. There is a marker about 4 miles down the road near Marsh Creek that indicates the spot where the Southerners first attacked them, and you might call it the skirmish at Marsh Creek. There's a nice tablet or marker on the side of the New Oxford train station that actually talks about the accident on June 24th where they hit the cow. And of course, there's a plaque on the Pennsylvania monument that gives the roster of the 26th Pennsylvania Emergency Regiment, and you can visit it and see the names of the men from Company A that were involved in the battle here. One last thing, and again, we'll show, we have a really nice photograph from the dedication ceremony of the 26th Pennsylvania Monument on September 1st, 1892. But there's an interesting article, and I'll show a photograph from it, in our Gettysburg newspaper. And I remember this event, although I did not remember the year. According to the Gettysburg Times of August 28, 1980, the monument for the 26th Pennsylvania Infantry Emergency damaged when a phosphorus truck caught fire near it on Route 30 in March of 1979, was hoisted into the air and taken away for repairs this morning. And yes, a container truck exploded right here in the street, threw all kinds of chemicals onto the monument, and the monument was horribly burned and greatly damaged. But the rock and bronze was cleaned and repaired, and today you can come out and see it in all its glory.